My name is Stan Brown, and I'll be presenting the Hall County Joint Municipal Association, which is a tool that we use here in Hall County to better collaborate between the cities and hopefully to work positively with the county. An overview of my presentation, I'll give you some background and some history on our Joint Municipal Association. I'll cover the purpose, the business model that we use, the work group approach that we take in order to take our goals and turn them into action items, and then we'll talk about the results. And at the conclusion, I'll have some sample documents that I'll be glad to share with you that might be helpful if you think it would be something you'd want to pursue in your county to establish a similar type organization. Okay, in terms of background and history, I'll kind of tell you a little bit about where we started with the Joint Municipal Association. It really began back in 1988. The cities at the time saw that it was important to try to bring the elected officials together to get to know each other better, pretty much at a social and relationship basis. Really did not look at a particular agenda or set of goals, but it was more of trying to build better relations between the cities to improve communication and trust, because at the time there were some very strained relationships between the cities and also between the cities and the county. So the Joint Municipal Association was an effort to try to improve that relationship. That organization continued on until about 2004, when there was a movement to go ahead and expand it, the Joint Municipal Association, into a joint local government association. And what changed with that was that we brought Hall County into the fold and made them a part of the organization. Again, the JLGA at that time was still a social relationship-based organization, no set organizational agenda or goals. But what we found, and the reason we brought the county in at that time, is that there was a lot of conflict going on between the county and the cities in terms of delivery of services. Service delivery strategy was very challenging to work through. Some issues with SPLOST and with loss negotiations. So that was an effort to try to build a bridge there between the cities and the county. But what we found going through that is really we didn't, without having a set of goals and an agenda and really trying to work towards something that we could all buy into, we found that really those relationships did not improve. And in fact, in some cases, they became more strained because the county would team up with certain cities and exclude other cities. More of a divide and conquer strategy we saw the county pursue. So when we got to 2010, we made a decision and basically changed the bylaws back to a joint municipal association, whereby we excluded the county from being a part of the organization. We still wanted to have semi-annual meetings with the county to talk about joint issues that were of interest to both parties. But we felt like as an organization, we really needed to go back to our roots, which was to look at it from a municipal standpoint. And as we all know, that there are reasons why we have a GMA and an ACCG, just like there's a reason why we have cities and counties. They do have a little bit different mission and a little bit different perspective on the issues. With the reestablishment of the Joint Municipal Association, we put together a business model to where we could become more of an outcome-based organization, and we established goals. And the next slide will show you what our purpose was, and then we'll follow that up with the business model. But the JMA purpose is really to foster better understanding between city governments and to affect the ways and means of providing maximum efficiency and economy in government to the citizens of the municipalities located in part or in whole within Hall County. And it was important for us to put the in part in the purpose statement because we do have a couple of our cities that are not entirely located within our county, but also overlap into other counties. Beaufort and Brazelton. Brazelton actually lies in 4 counties, and Beaufort is primarily in Gwinnett County, but has annexed property over into Hall County. So we want to make sure that those 2 cities were included and embraced as far as the Joint Municipal Association and have an important part there. As far as a business model for our Hall County JMA, Really, there are three major components. The first one is what we just call the JMA, which is made up of the mayors and the city councils. They meet quarterly, and their primary role would be to establish the vision, the goals, build consensus among the cities, have coordination and issues identification, basically looking at the big picture, much as your city council would do at the city government level. The next component of our business model is the executive committee, or we also refer to it as our mayor's group. This group meets monthly. It consists of the mayors of each municipality. That's a part of the Hall County JMA. We have 8 cities, so we have the 8 mayors. We also include the city managers as a staff ex officio member of the mayor's group. And basically the mayor's group, or the executive committee, they meet once a month. They establish the objectives and the goals, basically carry the broad goals and narrow that down to what we're really going to try to accomplish that year. Help guide toward a strategy and implementation to make sure that basically that we establish a work program that can actually be carried out and implemented. The executive committee is they have a set of officers. They have one of the mayors will serve as president, and then we line up a first vice president, second vice president, which would be made up of the mayors, and then we have a secretary, which is one of the city managers. In this case, I have served in that capacity over the last 4 years, and my role is really to guide the agenda, the preparing the minutes, to make sure that we're prepared and we have productive meetings when we do have the mayors get together. The executive committee is also very involved with legislative policy. They stay tuned in to the GMA legislative policies and make sure that we try to push those forward with our local delegation. And of course, any local legislation that we need to push with our local delegation, they're heavily involved in that. The third component of our business model is the JMA work group. And these are not standing work groups, but more task specific. They're formed and dissolved as needed by the executive committee. They're made up of staff. You can have some elected officials on there if necessary. We also have consultants at times as needed, depending on the specific task and the purpose. The executive committee, once they form a work group, they give very clear direction on what they want that work group to do. That work group will put together a work program, which identifies tasks, assigned individuals, and then a status on each one of those tasks. And that information is briefed back to the executive committee each month, as well as back to the JMA as a whole each quarter. So this is where we are more task-oriented now with our JMA than we were back when it was formed in 1988. So how do we compose our work groups? As I said, they are established by the executive committee based on the goals established each year by the JMA. A work group leader is identified for each work group, and then we have representatives from each city serving on the individual work groups. Our approach, first off, is to review the annual goals that are set by the executive committee each year and to develop an annual work program. For each work program task, we make a point of looking at the background, the law, history, facts, issues, stakeholders, resources needed to carry out that task. We try to identify alternatives and options, go through an evaluation of those options and alternatives to the point of coming up with a recommended course of action. And of course, in order to carry out that course of action, you've got to have an implementation strategy, and you have to be prepared to monitor and evaluate the results. So that's sort of the approach of how each one of those tasks is developed. And then, of course, we end up reporting the status of the goals established by the JMA each year and the work program back to the executive committee monthly and then back to the full JMA each quarter. So when we talk about goals, what are we really referring to? On this slide, I've given you just an example of the goals that we have this year in 2015. Obviously, this would vary from county to county if you were to consider putting together a joint municipal association. But just to give you an example of ones we have here for Hall County this year, First is to develop a countywide economic development strategy as a part of the county's comprehensive plan update. The county is in the process this summer of updating the comp plan. We want to make sure that we're a part of that economic development strategy. The number 2 goal there is to improve the oversight of SPLOST funding and project delivery. That's been an ongoing issue here in our county. Concerns, particularly by the cities, on how the county is utilizing SPLOST money for the projects that have been identified on the ballot. As you all know, there are very specific requirements in state law of how those SPLOST dollars are to be spent. We think it will help us on future SPLOST if we have good oversight of how those dollars are being spent and how they're being reported back to the public. Third is the collection of the county development impact fees. Hall County has a development impact fee that they collect out in the unincorporated area. They have had agreements in the past with various cities to collect the impact fee on their behalf, basically for an administrative fee. And those agreements were not all the same. Some continue to this day. Other agreements that the county had with various cities ended about 5 years ago. So one of the goals we have is that if some cities are going to collect impact fees, then we feel like we should all be doing it or not doing it at all. So we want to try to work on some consistency there. We did identify as a goal to try to meet twice a year with the county commission on a current local government issue that might be out there that would affect both cities and the county. So that's a goal we've set. We want to initiate service delivery discussions. We know with the update of the comprehensive plan that the county is embarking on this summer that the SDS update will follow. And we want to go ahead and get ahead of the game on that and start working on that update to the SDS. Another goal we have there is to oppose any kind of proposed consolidation of local governments with the county. There's been a movement in certain parts of the state to combine the cities and the county into one unified government. We don't, among the cities here in Hall County, we do not see that as something that we want to pursue. So we want to make sure that the cities as a whole are on the same page there and we don't end up with one situation where maybe one city were to pursue it with the county and the other cities not be in favor of it. So we've set that as a goal this year. And then the last one is to work with our local delegation on legislation affecting cities. So that would be both local legislation and also legislation at the statewide level. So those are the goals that we have for this year for the Hall County Joint Municipal Association. As I said, if you were to have a similar organization in your county, obviously your goals would be different. It'd be based on what your needs are in your particular county. When we looked at those goals as a Joint Municipal Association, we identified through the mayor's group the need to establish 3 work groups. We felt like that those goals would fall under one of these 3. The first one is service delivery strategy. The second is revenue, and then the third is planning and economic development. And the way the work groups are formed, we have had the mayors have established or assigned an individual to take lead or serve as the work group chair on each of these 3. So we have a city manager that heads up the service delivery strategy. We have another city manager that handles revenue, and then a third city manager takes on the planning and economic development. So we've tried to divide up the workload there and to put staff in charge of the work groups and then report that information back to the mayors and back to the Joint Municipal Association. This slide just gives you an example of a work program when we talk about our JMA work program. And you'll note that it's a very simple spreadsheet. We identify the task. We identify those 3. In this case, looks like this is probably from 2014. Infrastructure was one of our work groups, so we had infrastructure under one heading there, and we identified the task under that particular work group, and we assigned a lead person for each individual task, and then we tracked the status and what we were doing to try to work toward accomplishing that task. And you'll see it's color-coded. Tasks that have been completed, we show those as green over in the comments column. If it's a task that's still in progress, we show it as yellow. And then, of course, if we have a task that hasn't started yet, we have it as red. So basically using the colors of a traffic signal, red, yellow, and green, to help just at a glance see the status of how these tasks are moving forward. Okay, so it's great to have a joint municipal association to get together, socialize, build relationships. It's even better if you accomplish tasks and you have a purpose, you have an agenda, set goals and try to achieve those goals. But the bottom line comes down to, are you getting any results? And what I've got on this slide just gives you an example of some of the results that we've been able to achieve through our joint municipal association. This particular slide shows a number of transportation tasks that we have worked on and the status of those. First, you'll see that we identified as a task to try to make sure that each city had correct road mileage information. As you all know, with the local maintenance improvement grant funds that are provided through Georgia DOT back to local governments, it's very important to have your center line mileage correct. And so we identified that as a task. We worked with the county government and with the GIS to get everybody on the same page there, make sure that we were real clear on which roads were in which jurisdiction, and we had a good, accurate accounting of that centerline mileage. Second thing we saw that was important was to take an active role in the TIA, or the Transportation Investment Act, which was passed back in 2010, which we also referred to as the T-SPLOST. Part of that process was to establish a regional roundtable for transportation. We wanted to make sure that our county was well represented on that regional roundtable, and set as one of the tasks to lobby for the Hall County mayor representative to serve as the chairman of that regional roundtable. And we were successful in our efforts to have the mayor of Gainesville serve in that capacity. We also looked at passenger rail service as being an important thing for our future. And through the Joint Municipal Association, we were able to get that added into our Gainesville Hall Metropolitan Planning Organization Long-Range Transportation Plan. Don't know that we'll see passenger rail anytime in the near future, but we know that if it's not in the plan, it'll never happen. So we work toward that task. The marketing of the Regional Transportation Tax, or the T-SPLOST, the Joint Municipal Association initiated the dialogue with the local Chamber of Commerce to take a lead on that marketing strategy. And even though we were not successful in passing the T-SPLOST here in our region, we were successful in working with the Chamber on putting together a marketing plan. One of the other things we're very proud of that we've accomplished through the JMA is the annual joint paving contract that we do among our cities. We started this back in 2011, and basically Oakwood will put together a contract each year, put out the bid documents, and we offer any of the other cities within the county that would like to participate to sign on to that contract, provide the scope of the roads that they want to have included in the contract, and we put it into one package, bid it out as one project, and award it as one project, and then we use task orders for each city in order to deal with the accounting and the funds and the payment back to the contractor. That has been very successful. We're doing it again this year. With that, we have the project is out to bid now, and it will include Oakwood and Claremont, Flowery Branch, and Brazelton this year. And we hope to continue that as a successful outcome from our JMA efforts. The last item I have on this slide is the LMIG funds distribution method. One of the things that we saw back when LMIG became a replacement of the old LARP and state aid program was that the process of receiving LMIG funds was not very well defined. There wasn't a very clear application process, and it still was left up to the political process of working back through the commissioner to get funds for your particular jurisdiction. What we did as a JMA is started sort of a grassroots movement to streamline that process, to base it on some of the same principles we saw with the T-SPLOST program, where you would have those funds distributed based on lane miles or centerline miles and population. So basically, what we decided to do was try to work together with our local delegation, Senator Butch Miller, who represents Hall County. We worked through his office and had proposed a bill that would modify the way that GDOT would distribute those funds. And the outcome of that was that we really didn't need a bill at all. What we ended up doing was working with the GDOT commissioner, and his staff, and we're able to work out a new process whereby the funds are distributed strictly based on the mileage and your population, so basically by formula. That process has worked very well for both GDOT and the cities. I think it simplified the process, and it gets the funds to you so that you can then utilize those funds to do your local program. But that was one of those things that began as an idea from our Joint Municipal Association. We spread those ideas on to the region as we worked through the T-Splost effort, and was able to, through that process, gain support from the other counties and other cities. And working together, we were able to work with GDOT and bring about a positive result. So again, just some of the results that we've seen come out of our Joint Municipal Association. This slide shows you the map that we were able to put together for the T-Splost. It identifies the projects within Hall County, both the cities and the unincorporated area within our county that were included in the T-Splost referendum. Another thing we've been able to accomplish through our JMA work groups in the JMA process is the sewer service delivery districts. We've got a pretty complicated looking map here in Hall County where we have about 17 or 18 districts that are identified for sewer service providers. And a lot of that is based on the fact that we have 8 cities and we have a couple of different drainage basins. Part of the area drains to the Chattahoochee. The eastern part of the county drains to the Oconee. So based on that, it's a little bit of a convoluted process, but we were able to work together as cities and county staff to reach consensus on how that sewer service delivery map should look and how those services can be provided. Another thing we've been able to accomplish was the development of a joint countywide bike and pedestrian plan. In fact, it was jointly funded by the cities and the county and worked through our MPO process to establish a countywide plan. We've worked on that strategy for the economic development plan as part of the comp plan. That process is already underway, even though the comp plan itself hasn't started. The cities and the county are already working together on identifying key properties that are available for major economic development impacts here in our community, and identifying layers of infrastructure, schools, etc., that all are important to bring about a good economic development strategy. One of the things that started off very positively, the final outcome wasn't quite what we hoped for, but when we looked at Lost, we came together as the cities through the JMA, and we funded jointly a consultant to work with us on developing a loss study and to assist us in negotiating with the county for the loss distribution. Of course, like many of the communities, we ended up not getting the results we were after because of the Supreme Court case down in Turner County. But had we gone to baseball arbitration, we feel like we would have been very successful based on the fact that we had worked together and we had a good case. That would not have happened without our Joint Municipal Association. We would have had a very fragmented challenge there as far as trying to look at the loss negotiations. Recently, in March of this year, we saw that by working together through our Joint Municipal Association and then trying to bridge the gap and coordinate with the county, we were successful with a SPLOST referendum being passed by our voters. So we will have SPLOST funds available for the next 5 years to work on critical infrastructure projects here within our community. And then the most recent thing that we've been able to accomplish as a Joint Municipal Association is establishing a liaison with the County Commission to work with our Executive Committee and to try to identify joint issues of joint interest between the cities and the county, and try to work toward solutions that are good for both unincorporated and incorporated citizens. We know that we are all within the same county, whether you're in a city or whether you're in an unincorporated area, you're all part of this county. And it's important that we work together for the good of all. So we're very optimistic about this concept. We chose one of the commissioners who is the more senior commissioners with the county to be our liaison. He has made a commitment to work with the cities more closely and to try to bring about positive results. So we'll see if that becomes one of these things we can report as a real success in the future. In summary, we believe that our Joint Municipal Association has created a much stronger relationship between our cities. We think we have improved the communication and the trust that had been lacking in the past. We also have seen that we now have joint city positions on issues with the county. And that helps us in terms of working with the county when we're negotiating issues like service delivery strategies, SPLOST, LOST, tax equity. When the cities are unified, the county has one party to negotiate with and not 8 different parties to negotiate with. So we think that that creates unity in our negotiations and is much more beneficial to all of our citizens. And I think that's what it's all about, is providing more effective and more efficient services to our citizens. We think by working as a joint municipal association, the cities have brought about better planning here in this county. We think that there is much more efficiency in how we provide services, whether that be with roads, transportation, sewer, parks and rec, the list goes on and on. And we think that we've been able to create some consistency in terms of our local policies and how services are delivered for our citizens. And at the end of the day, we would like to think that we have improved the relations with the county and that they know that they have a unified partner to negotiate with, and we hope to see that that relation will continue to improve over time. I do have a few documents would be glad to share with you here. We have our bylaws for the Joint Municipal Association. This is, we believe, a pretty good template to look at. It's just your typical set of bylaws with your purpose, your organization, your officers, your meetings, how all that is carried out, keeping minutes. And then the last article deals with how you review and revise your Constitution and bylaws. To show you a document, I've got a document here that shows the goals that we established this year, which were already included on one of the slides, and then also it identifies the work groups that were established. This is a document that is adopted by the executive committee or our mayor's group each year. The third document I have here is a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, that shows the current work program that we're using this year. And as I mentioned, we have 3 work groups, and we have the service delivery. We also have finance, and then planning and development. And then I've also included an example of a Joint Municipal Association quarterly meeting. Again, just an example and a template that you could take a look at if you were to pursue establishing a Joint Municipal Association in your particular county. And then last is an example of the agenda that we use for our mayor's lunch each month. Our executive committee meeting agenda, and it's pretty standard. Call to order, the approval of minutes. We do keep minutes of the meetings, which we've seen to be very helpful to look at the past and the results of things that we're getting accomplished. And then we identify old business, new business, and then we have the reports, both the work group reports and then also reports from each city of things that are going on in their community. So that concludes my presentation. Would be more than happy to help anyone that would like more information about our Joint Municipal Association. Be glad to take a phone call or a email. My email address is sbrown@cityofoakwood.net. My phone number is 770-534-2365. And I think that's the beauty of being a part of the Georgia Municipal Association, is that we should all share both successes and failures. I think we can learn from one another. And what we've done here in Hall County has worked well for us. But we realize that same tool doesn't work in every community. But we'd like to be out there and available to assist you if you think something like this would work in your community. Also, if you're doing something similar that's working well for you, we'd like to hear about that as well. So I think the more we can share information together, we all can do a better job for our communities. Thank you. And